Arun, let's go. Good evening. Welcome to all the participants of today's program, which is focusing on youth, environment, and sustainability. Thank you very much for joining. We are around the corner of Ganesh Chaturthi. Gauri Ganesha is tomorrow and day after. And with me, I have great pleasure in welcoming, of course, my dear senior friend from the, I can't say industry, but the society, Mr. Suresh Heblikar, who's a well-known filmmaker, also a very passionate environmentalist for many decades now. Also with him is joining as his colleague, son, support system, everything, Mr. Akshay Heblikar, who is the director of EcoWatch. Welcome to the program. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you all participants. So we're going to take this slow. It's going to be a 60 to 70 minutes talk. Plenty of questions to be shot at the Heblikars, and I hope they're going to answer almost all the questions. So if you have questions, send it to Gaunola Kalpana. You can find it in your list in your box. Sometimes we might be in a position to also unmute you and let you ask the questions. But however, please post your questions to Kalpana Gaunola or Gaunola Kalpana. You can find it on in the co-host. So please feel good to frame and ask questions in the chat box. We will pick it up and try to unmute you around that time, or I'll try to ask you on your behalf. I just want to introduce Suresh Heblikar, a good friend of mine, as I said, is a very well-known filmmaker, director, and actor of the years. He's a well-known environmentalist. He's been the founding director of EcoWatch way back in 1998. He's produced many noteworthy movies in Kannada, of which you must be knowing many of you, Kadina Benki, which won the Best Director National Award, and also Usha Kiran, the Filmfare Award. His films are known to have an offbeat theme where passionate romance is portrayed. You will know as we speak today how romantic this person is, not necessarily romancing the thing, but the way he is, built up his life and, being so romantic towards the nature, you will discover it as we go through the evening's conversation. Kindly sit back and enjoy as we make the conversation with this great man. His movie themes are also involving psychosis and scientific temperaments, which Heblikar humbly attributes to his association with the producer and psychoanalyst Dr. Ashok Pai. Being an environmentalist himself, his movies depict nature and conservation. Suresh Heblikar had his early education at Presentation Convent and Basel Mission School in Dharwad. He has completed his bachelor's degree from Karnataka College and postgraduate degree from Karnataka University, Dharwad. His latest movies, I'm sure there are many of them, some of us, we have already seen it. Latest movies include Kadina Benki, Tai Sahiba, Pratama Usha Kirana, Aghata, Yellindalo Bandavaru. I have great pleasure, sir. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I also would like to quickly take a couple of minutes to introduce my dear friend, my school favorite, Akshay Heblikar, who's now serving as the director of EcoWatch. He's knowledge by himself, and he spent a lot of time understanding various environmental issues over the years, also the concerns across various geographical regions. He has started working with target communities in the society to evolve practical approaches to address their concerns. Akshay has also helped realize the need to design and implement sustainable solutions rather than ad hoc and fragmented projects and programs. He strongly feels about environment sustainability, currently working towards bridging conservation with market-based sustainable approaches to strengthen social, economic, and ecological security of various communities. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I will not talk too much because I want to hear. I always hear every time I get a chance. So sometimes I go away into Mr. Heblikar's house and say, I want to talk to you, sir. And we spend the time discussing various issues. But today I want to ask Suresh Heblikar, sir. Sir, we are in a situation which is dire in some senses. How would you want to begin this conversation, sir? Do you want to say a few words about where the youth, the environment, and the sustainability connects together, and what your feelings to begin with, sir? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Krishna, for having introduced me in the abundant measures. And now you asked me to talk about environment, and especially of focusing on youth, sustainability, and environment. All these three things are, interlinked. Youth, sustainability, because youth always look at the sustainable jobs, sustainable life, sustainable economics, and everything. And they are young, they are romantic, they are passionate. So environment comes in very handy with the youth of this country or anywhere in the world. And they can always take up works towards environment much more easily than the elders. So there is a lot of scope for the young people to play a role, to take up initiatives in environment, conservation, rejuvenation, environmental awareness programs, and so on. Today, environment is a much bigger subject than any other subject, perhaps, according to me, in the world. The whole world is talking today, discussing. We have, as you've seen in the last couple of years, we have cyclones, we have most of the time gales on the oceans. We have been talking about climate change, we have been talking about global warming. We look at the Atlantic and Antarctic, these glaciers, how they are melting very fast for the first time in the world. And recently I was also discussing with a scientist. He said a lot of polluted water is flowing from Russia towards the Arctic. And the scientists who had gone there for a certain amount of research, they found that the yellow water was relentlessly flowing into the glaciers of Arctic. And they took nearly 6 months to clean the glaciers. So a certain amount of mining, which has been done nearer this Arctic, and without caring for the, for addressing the issue of pollution, they were letting out this kind of thing. So the world is today scared of these environmental issues because global warming, as we know today, has resulted in climatic change. And the global warming started because after globalization, the globalization which came in India in around 1991, and then followed by economic liberalization, which opened up a host of multinational companies into this country. And not only India, most of the developing countries today are going through these environmental issues. Like, for instance, global warming. They lost their rivers, they lost their ponds, they lost their local bodies, the water bodies, grasslands, forests. We must be careful as to how we have to protect some of our ecosystems, like the Western Ghat forest. The Western Ghats, as you know, the United Nations proclaimed it as the heritage tag. With the heritage tag, they proclaimed it one of the most important biodiversity hotspots on the earth. The Amazon forest, the Western Ghat forest, all these are the lungs of the earth. And we must know that they play a tremendous role. The biodiversity today in the world is so important. It's such a complex feature of the planet that if we lose the biodiversity, perhaps there is no future for humanity. And recently a professor from Oxford University said it, that people will find it extremely difficult to live life because biodiversity means it's a soil, it is a forest, it is it's insects, it is microorganism, everything. We get medicines from the the forests of the Western Ghats. We get agriculture from the wonderful soil. We get water, air, all these things which are not created by man. They have been all created by nature. So we look at the great oceans, the mountains, the rivers, the grasslands, these wonderful forests like the Amazon forest, the Western Ghat forest, the forests of the Himalayas. We should have tried to protect them. See, the entire peninsula of South India has about 65 major rivers in the Western Ghats. Karnataka, being one of the 5 states of the southern, the southern India, has about more than 19,000 square kilometers of the forest. But in spite of it, Karnataka is considered as second in terms of having arid land after Rajasthan. We have so much of arid land. So we need to conserve, we need to protect every single tree that we have in the Western Ghats. Unfortunately, we have cut more than 40% of the trees in the Western Ghats in entire South India. And what has happened if we cut the trees in the Western Ghats? See, there's a huge precipitation. The rain-bearing clouds which come from the Arabian Sea, they precipitate on the forest. The entire rainwater is absorbed. It goes slowly into the ground. It percolates, increases the groundwater, and fills the streams and fills the lakes and fills the rivers. There is not, as I have seen, because I was born in Dharwad, and my entire youth was spent in swimming lakes and going around on the cycle on the Goa road, looking at the running green hillocks, picking up the wild berries from the forests there. This kind of a life, somewhere my father used to tell me that his grandfather used to get up early in the morning and go on sowing seeds on the bunds of agriculture land. And when asked why was he doing it, he said there are a lot of poor people and farmers. They need implements to plow the land, and they can cut these trees and make implements and sustain their lives. When you're talking about sustainability, we should look at the uses that we have from these various, like from the soil, the water, the forest. They cannot be taken for granted. Unfortunately, we have taken environment for granted. We have taken the lake. So there will be rain. The water will be there in the river. Water will be there in the lakes. Look at Bangalore. For instance, let's say about 7-8 years ago, we had a large number of the peri-urban areas of Bangalore were filled with a lot of villages. Certain officials, certain BBMP, they came together. They said that we'll make a Brahat, Mahanagara Corporation. So about 110 villages were captured by these people. and the villages were completely asphalted.
I like the way you use the word captured.
Yes, the asphalt. You see, asphalting. Today, you look at Bangalore, there is no soil. You cannot see the soil anywhere. Soil is taken millions of years for the 6 meters top soil to be created on this earth. If because of the soil, you and I are there, the birds, the forests, the biodiversity, everything is there because of the soil. This living dynamic soil has been completely neglected by the government, by the even people also. So we have to look at our forests of the Western Ghats. We have to look at the Himalayas. When you go abroad and people say, why do you come to India? We have no Himalayas. We come to Himalaya. And our culture of the South Indian Peninsula, that's what I was saying, 65 major rivers. And, it irrigates millions of acres of land. It produces millions of units of hydropower, lights up millions of homes, runs thousands of industries, employs millions of people. And then you have good agriculture, horticulture, animal husbandry, you have the milk, you have everything. So these are the things of North Karnataka. Why people in North Karnataka are fighting for the last about 3 decades to get water from Mahadayi. Because Mahadayi is one of the rivers of the 4 major rivers, Ghataprabha, Malaprabha, Mahadayi and Kali. They take their birth in this region of North Karnataka, Uttar Karnataka, that because of the forest there. And today they are getting flooded, they affect agriculture, they are affecting the entire environment. So they are throwing out, the kind of life we lived.
I told him, by 8:15 I'll be there.
Hello? Am I heard? Anyway, hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah. So I was just talking about these issues. And, see, about 110 villages in Bangalore. Why I'm saying that? Because these villages, they contained a lot of Kalyani, that is the wells. They contained a lot of small water ponds. They were growing vegetables. They were growing fruits like banana, whatever it is. And today, most of them were asphalted. And today we have lost those 110 villages. Whatever the rainfall comes, it does not percolate there. So we have lost the groundwater also. There is no groundwater today in Bangalore. About 50 million liters of groundwater is used every day to feed the growing population of Bangalore. We have more than 1 crore of population today in Bangalore. And how are we going to sustain now? How to sustain, you need grasslands. We have about 5,000 acres of grasslands outside Bangalore near Etherghatta Lake. And these grasslands are considered as wasteland because only some grass and shrubs is grown there. What about the shepherds? What about the cattle? The Bangalore dairy every day makes 85 lakh liters of milk every day. It supplies to Bangalore. What about the fodder? Where do they get the fodder? We are just stalling the animals and feeding them. So I told the managing director of the Bangalore Dairy recently when I met him that you should try to preserve these grasslands. The government has put up certain buildings there. They have put up some film school. They have given another 1 or 2 10-acre parcels of land to other people. So grasslands also are the carbon sinks. They help the water to survive. They help the groundwater table to come up. They feed the shepherd. They feed the cattle, and they are the biggest carbon sink. So we have about 40 million hectares of grasslands today in India. If you go to the Deccan Plateau, the entire grassland has been now converted into the tree crops, or certain agricultural lands are abandoned to be used by the people in the neighborhood. They have just mindlessly, relentlessly used this without understanding the importance of the grassland. Grassland has different kinds of animals. We have about 4 ecosystems, in the North Karnataka region, like the Western Ghat forest. As they subside, we have the thorny, bushy jungles. And then when it subsides, we have the depressions. These depressions were covered by water over a period of nearly thousands of years. So we have the pond ecosystem. And towards the east, we have the grasslands. So these 4 ecosystems, which merge with each other, they produce a wonderful landscape. They produce soil nutrients are rich. The humidity is good. the fertility of the soil is good. In Ranebennur, people from China, Korea, Singapore, they come regularly to buy seeds and buy vegetable seeds there. That is a place meant to grow any amount of vegetables. So a professor friend of mine, Professor Uttangi, who used to tell me that Karnataka has this ecotone belt, which is about 200 kilometers from Ranebennur to Belgaum. You get wonderful tastes of vegetables. You have great amount of milk there. That's why Dharwad Peda and Belgaum Kunda are very well known because of the biodiversity, because of these 4 ecosystems, because of the ecotone belt. We are going to lose all of them gradually. And he said the entire Karnataka can be supplied with food grains like millets, that we have ragi, we used to have navani in North Karnataka. We was wonderful. If you go and eat there, the jolas.
I just want to stop
Anyway.
you and ask you. I just want to ask you.
No, I will just wrap it up.
Okay, you want to wrap it up? Okay, sir. Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
So what I said, we have these Western Ghat forests, we have the wonderful grasslands, and to sustain the kind of a life that we had in the past, the youth must try to understand that we need. Anyway, I'm going to talk later about what about Mahatma Gandhi when he talked about khadi and the textile industries, why he went on talking about the small industries, the village handicrafts and so on, because they consume much less resources and sustain the kind of an economic life for millions of people who live in the rural parts of India. We have to understand that nearly 60% of our population lives in the small villages and the small towns. We need to have economic life, economic hubs in the social clusters of the villages of India. Then only we can sustain the economic, social, cultural, political life of this country, not otherwise. Anyway,
thank you, Suresh. So just thank you for that opening remarks. I just want to ask you, I mean, you are saying we have finished environment, we have finished sustain, we can't become a sustainable world again. Are you saying that? I mean, the whole world blames the youth. I mean, the youth did not do it. I mean, the youth are innocent of today. Yeah. But obviously, you're not blaming the youth today. You're only saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not blaming. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is, you see, J.B.S. Haldane was a great, physicist. He was a sociologist, a man from Britain who came and lived in India for nearly 50 years. He talked about the technology that the young people will pursue in future. He said they will be absorbed by the technological flaws, the technological gloss, and then they will pursue technology to earn more money. And then their life in culture, arts, and the traditions, the cultural life of this country, they will not be much interested in that. They will be more interested in pursuing the cars, pursuing mobile phones, pursuing the modern life like the apartment buildings and so on, going abroad. These are some of the fascinations which unfortunately the youth will be, possessed with. Right. And in the process, they will lose their health. They will lose their interest in culture. Culture is the most important thing that has made our life sustain. I'm not saying that the youth have done it. Maybe the previous generation, they should have. Today, the youth must understand if they want to really live. And I said that people have come to know because of this COVID, which has now affected the whole world. After the COVID, thousands of youngsters from the big cities have joined. They have gone back to their hometowns, the villages. They are finding life more beautiful there. And this is what I had predicted about 25 years ago, that people will go back to the villages as more enlightened people and understand, okay, this is much better life. Not just live. I'm not saying Bangalore is bad, but Bangalore certainly has gone down the drain as far as the environment is concerned, because there are certain things which cannot rejuvenate. For instance, the lakes. We cannot, because we have built up entire, our, socio-cultural life around the lakes. We have encroached the land. We have destroyed the catchment areas. So how will you, make the lake survive or lake sustain? It is difficult. They go on putting the money. Certain agencies, certain companies will take, they will say they will put up some STPs, and then STPs will not do the job. The rain must hit. There must be grassland. There must be shrubs. The rain must go through the soil, taking nutrients from the land and flow into the lake so that the aquaculture of the lake will survive. Not just simply by just keeping the water sheet of the body and then saying that, oh, it is looking beautiful by making certain islands. No, it is not the lake. We have
Right.
that.
Thank you, Akshay.
Yeah.
Akshay, you want to add this? I mean, do you agree? Come on, he's saying the youth have to be the. I mean, come on, the older generation for the last few decades have not been able to protect this. Let's not blame it on the youth. I mean, you have something to add to Mr. Suresh's words here.
Yeah. See, I'm not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm not blaming the youth at all. We have been actually, getting more number of youths into this program. We have this volunteer engagement activities programs that are going on. A lot of other companies have been supporting, sustaining some of the projects and programs that we are into. So what is happening is, it is not that we are blaming the youth, but we need to sensitize them. That is the point. We need to sensitize them at this point in time. They have to be aware. They need to be.
It is now or never, isn't it? It's
Definitely.
Now or never.
Yes.
Yeah.
We used to say, in the next 5-10 years, this is going to happen, that is going to happen. We're going to lose lakes. We're going to lose other ecosystems. Now we are on the verge of it. So, and this is when they have to play a major role, in the sense they have to get involved. Yes, there might be certain other pressing issues for them, but they also have to know that if they do not take care of the environment right now, these issues, they can wait for a while, but not some of our environmental issues. Like, for example, what Suresh was saying, if we do not protect the water bodies, now in the urban areas, protecting, conserving or restoring these water bodies is out of question. They can remain as they are. Only thing is, with the STP, all that we can do is see that the sewage water is clean, treated, and gets into the water body. There is no fresh rainwater entering into the lakes. What we are doing right now is to see that the peri-urban areas just beyond Bangalore, on the outskirts of Bangalore, these peri-urban or semi-urban areas are the ones which are now actually sustaining Bangalore. For example, you will find people who are still continuing with agriculture, horticulture, dairy, various other farming activities. They are also protecting these lakes because they are in need of this water, because the wells and the bore wells have to function. If not, if they do not protect these lakes, they will also go out of business. These lands will be, they will not be able to cultivate, and they will migrate to Bangalore. And this is going to create much more burden on the city. So we are trying to see how we can protect the peri-urban areas. People can still live there. And they are the ones, if you actually look at it, you have a lot of people who are living there, working there, and also contributing to the growth of Bangalore. For example, you have vegetables coming in from Bagalur, Devanhalli, this belt. You have so many other fruits which are coming in from Hosur, Magadi, Kanakpura. So these, if we do not protect them right now, Bangalore is going to further expand, but we need to have we will definitely have to have a barricading kind of a setup, because we cannot grow. You can grow beyond it, but how are you going to grow? How is Bangalore going to grow? We cannot call it as growth. It is not a planned development. That is the problem. So, if
Akshay, I'm going to come back to you on that. Suresh, Akshay, thanks for the opening thing.
Yes.
Suresh, I mean, this is an interesting point that he says, are we saying that Bangalore has now reached a point where there is no return? I mean, is it a point of no return for Bangalore in terms of sustainability? Suresh, I want to ask you, where are we as a city in Bangalore?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how dangerous a position are we in? Right.
Yeah, we are. Because, see, the thing is, a lot of environmental factors are invisible, in the sense intangible. When we look at the lakes, we think, lake is beautiful. But we don't understand what exactly is a lake. Is the lake polluted? Is the lake really going to die? Only that much water is there. So air pollution, we come to know only when we are sick, when the doctors say, and when the doctors many times don't say, because there is air pollution, you have the lung problem and all that. So that's what I said. We have been taking for granted that there is going to be a good environment. So most of the cities in India, I tell you why. We have to understand the traditional mindset of these Indians. We are basically a small town people. Even Bangalore was about 20, 30 years ago, was just a small town. It was not a very big city like Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta. These were all big cities right from the beginning. When the British came to Calcutta first and they, tried to put up bridges and so on and so forth. So now today, look at Bangalore, look at Mumbai, look at Delhi, look at Calcutta, look at Ahmedabad, look at Chennai, look at Pune. I have been seeing all these cities for the last 20, 30 years. Many of them are unsustainable in the sense they don't get the kind of fresh water they were getting earlier. They don't get fresh vegetables when they were getting earlier. Today, most of the food that they eat sometimes is, it is adulterated. Many times it is contaminated. Water is contaminated. So we have more diseases. These are the issues because sustainability is one which has to be looked at more seriously. Sustainability is not just living and things like that. Sustainability is to live a healthy and a constructive, a beautiful, emotional life. You see, in an environment which is economically, which is socially, which is culturally compact, which I'm not saying everything will be the same, because on this earth there have been 1.70 million species have been recorded. There are 8 to 9 million species which people think there, but many scientists believe that there are 100 million species on this planet. Now, since life came on this earth, there have been various evolutions, and each evolution, the species, wherever there were animals before, much before man came, that we had dinosaurs. 65 million years ago, a big meteorite wiped out the dinosaurs and most of our plant life from the earth. So there have been many kinds of these instances which have been taking place on this earth. And many of these evolutions, the environmental evolutions, have gone through the experiences of decline, but they have adjusted, adapted. So today, even the word is adapt to the climate change. Adapt means the agriculture is going to make certain changes in their seeds, and the technology. And the people think that we are going to get electric cars. But let me tell you, even we talk about electric cars only because we are not going to use fuel. But the manufacturing of the car, we need to go do the same thing. We have to take out iron. We have to take out iron ore, make steel, make cars. And we have to have aluminum, we have to have manganese, we have to have copper. All these minerals have to be taken from the womb of the earth. And how long this earth will contain, how long this earth will sustain this kind of a continuous supply of the minerals that the human wants on this earth. The animals don't want this. Animals only use that which is available for them, and they die. But the humans try to continue to live a comfortable life. If not this car, then another car. If not this house, another house. But all these houses, they will require, all the things that we are going to use require the elements of nature. And then that is what I'm saying, the big cities are a big headache. Now, if you go to small towns, you can somehow address the issues of law and order, of maybe of the water supply, maybe of even getting vegetables. It is easy to live in the small towns. I'm not saying that there should not be big cities, but we have to plan a city. For instance, New York has been planned in such a way that the coming 100 years, it will sustain the same kind of economic life, because they have understood what kind of a migration will be there in New York, how people will come, what kind of a transport is required, how to connect the network of the transport. These things have to be planned. But Bangalore today, we are planning metro after nearly 20 years of its first initiation. Now we are crisscrossing the city after building the city. Mumbai was not like that. They took from east to west, north to south, and they laid the railway lines, and they started running the trains. So large number of people go by trains there. We should have done that. We are not doing it. We don't know how to build cities. I'm telling you, we do not know also how to manage the cities. Because look at our garbage problem for the last 20 years. Look at our Belandur Lake problem. For the last 10 years, every day it is coming in paper. New York Times published it. We have not, because our mindsets are not with the big cities. Because in the Western civilization, the cities came, the cities were built by the farmers, because the farmers told the youth to go away from the village and live there. The youth asked, who is going to give us food? They said, we will produce food and bring to you. You go on making experiments, make whatever scientific experiments you want, technological experiments, go on continuing that. So the cities were built in, they have taken more than 175 years, right from a pin, right from a cycle to an aeroplane and to a spacecraft. They have taken 175 years. They have gone through literally hundreds of stages of development, economic, industrial, scientific, technological. Today, if you go abroad, perhaps you have gone many times and see the way they don't use the car the way we use the cars here. For every small little thing, we want to go and use the car. They run, they walk, they go by trains, they go by tubes, they're cycling. So these are some of the things. So we have, for us, a car has become a symbol of prestige, a symbol of greatness, a symbol of show. So, see, these are the kind of mindsets we have. So big cities, we think we need to have a car, we need to have an apartment, we need to have a bungalow. So this is not required. So there has to be a change, a revamping of the economic, social, cultural, and educational policies. We have to teach the children actually to live with our soil, with the leaves, with trees, with bees, because this biodiversity is going to sustain our life. Let me tell you that. If the biodiversity is not there, humanity will not survive.
Thank you, Suresh. This is the first question I want to take at this point. I like the way you say, Krishna, if biodiversity doesn't survive, the humanity will end.
Yeah.
And I like the way you say that. I have a question from Rotarian Kashi, who's saying, is there a blanket solution to balance out city growth, which needs more infrastructure and development? And at the same time, we are able to have a healthy environment. Can both go hand in hand? Is question from Kashi.
See, there have been a lot of experiments like, satellite towns. People, the government wanted to use satellite towns, not only here. They wanted to extend towards Mysore, extend towards Tumkur, and they went on building. But it was not planned properly, once again, I'm telling you. So we need to concentrate on the small towns. We need to concentrate on smaller cities and build them, and give the infrastructure there. What is the point in building big cities at the neglect of the smaller towns, smaller cities, and not care for what's happening there? This is going to bring about a lot of social and economic inequality. Why people rush only to Bangalore? Why they don't go and live in Hubli or Belgaum? Or many people are living, no doubt about that, because there is certain amount of infrastructure and all built there, like the airports and all that. What I'm trying to say is, if you go to US or if you go to Japan, if you go to England, you'll see that from one town to another town, about 50 kilometers to 100 kilometers, they don't see much difference except London, which is a little more congested, which has more infrastructure, but which has been their city for a long time. But we have to build India in such a way that it will sustain life. We have to look at our social and cultural life and economic life. You see, environment is totally interrelated to our economy. It is interrelated to our social life. It's interrelated to our culture. Wherever there are different environments, different cultures have grown. So we have to understand what kind of infrastructure is needed. We cannot go on building the kind of infrastructure that we are putting up in Bangalore, and destroying the cement and steel which comes from so much, distance. We are destroying the kind of sand, which the sand comes from various rivers. You have seen the trucks which are being parked carrying the sand. Sand today costs 40,000 rupees a truck, which was available for 5,000 rupees. So this is, and they have destroyed the lakes, they have destroyed the rivers, they have scooped up the entire sand from the rivers, and then Lot of rivers have changed their courses of life. So this is the way, because you are building the big cities, big infrastructure. There should not be. We have to we have to understand the whole country's requirement. We have to understand what role agriculture plays, what role horticulture plays, what role animal husbandry plays, and we have to give them equal importance and build them there. As I said earlier, I was saying about the grasslands. If we had preserved the Deccan Plateau, if we had preserved these ecosystems, which are there in North Karnataka, there would not have been the problems of flooding. There would not have been the problems of migration. We should have started, even the big companies which came here, we should have told them, look, all of you want to be only in Bangalore, and people will come to Bangalore, not only from India, from even other countries. And today, where you have to supply vegetables, you have to supply water, you have to supply milk. So even Akshay was saying the peri-urban economy, which is so important. The peri-urban economy is also destroyed today, in the sense which is on the verge of vanishing, where we are trying to develop lakes, trying to create awareness among people. So these are how the cities will throw their impact on other ecosystems, on other environmental assets, on other economic life, and socio-cultural, inequalities.
That brings me to an important question. Kausalya, who's a trainer by herself, she's asking a question. So then, what are we left with in terms of alternative economic options for sustainable living? What do we really have options?
Yeah, I'm saying that we have to look at the small towns of India. We have to look at the other cities of India, give them the kind of infrastructure. We need to have an expert, not expert committee in the sense only who look at the technological. When we today talk about, the smart cities, we only bring various kinds of, the technologies on the single platform. That should not be. We should look at the cultural life, the social life of the people. That's going to sustain our life. Without cultural, entities, without social entities, without the integration of socio-cultural, economic life, there cannot be, a much better way of life, of living in a big cities. Today, you think people living in big cities are very happy? Just because we are living in a big city like Bangalore, are we more happy than what we were earlier? I don't think I was. About 20 years back, I used to go through Cubbon Park. I used to always love it. I used to go through so many things. I had a motorbike. I used to ride on this Kanakpura road. For kilometers, I would not get even a small hotel where I could stop and have my tea. Such beautiful, Bangalore was. I know that Bangalore will change, but if we had developed other cities, developed other towns, asked the company people to come and they could have also participated, they could have invested money, we could have created an infrastructure, and then this is how alternatives are there. These alternatives are sustainable, and sustainable alternatives have to be looked at because of our economic life that we have spent here and ruined the cities. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Akshay, I will just come to you. You've been involved in a lot of projects. You now head a NGO which is into the various projects that we are doing. So the Center for Environment and called EcoWatch. And you've been involved very actively in the eco-development of lakes, water bodies in Bangalore. I just want to understand, what are you doing for the last few years, and where are we in terms of this particular thing right now?
Well, to begin with, see, EcoWatch started, mostly with the environmental awareness, sensitization, education programs. But then later, gradually, we thought only awareness, sensitization wouldn't be enough. You just can't talk about this and then leave it at that. You will have to show people what happens, what is happening, and what can happen if you have to restore. If you are going to restore lakes, if you're going to have urban forestry, if you're going to have woodlots, which was once there in Bangalore, we still have, yes, compared to all other cities, we still have little more green cover in Bangalore. But we are fast losing them. And what is happening is that this green cover that we are seeing is not, it is not, there are no diverse species, and that's the problem. Now, everywhere we find monoculture, the same kind of tree species, just one kind of flowering varieties or just one kind of palm is being grown. So what we started doing was if urban forestry has to be in place, we need to first look at how and what kind of species are we going to grow. What are the kind of plants that we are going to plant? So we started the urban forestry program almost about in 99, 2000. And with the first of its urban forestry, which was implemented in the Army ASC Center in Koramangala on the intermediate ring road. That was the first of its kind in the country, at least. The other projects that we are working on is to also try and sensitize the school children, especially the government school kids.
Akshay, urban forest, we planted about 50,000 trees.
Yeah.
In the army land area.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we then went on to educate or sensitize the school children, especially the government schools, because most of the other schools we saw that they could afford, they had access to information. But whereas the government school kids are more interested, they are definitely interested, but they have to be guided, they have to be channelized properly, and they have the interest and they have the attitude as well. They have the inclination and they know it because they live in certain conditions that they know that they have to use limited resources. And that is why they are more sensitive to conservation, to protect or to conserve water, to not use more power, because they have been living in such conditions that they know what it is to get 24/7 water, 24/7 power. So we started working with the schools, the government schools, of course, supported by some of the companies like PwC and Shell supported it, SAP, Intel. See, these are the companies who have come forward and supported our programs. We have also been associated with Rotary quite some time ago when we had some medicinal plants conservation programs. We also had some urban forestry activities with so many other Rotary clubs across the city and even in different parts of the state. And then we went on to take up some of the lakes, because as I told you earlier, the lakes in Bangalore are now beyond any kind of repair. You cannot, you just have to let it be. Even if there is discharge of sewage water, it has to be treated and then discharged into the lakes. Apart from that, you cannot do anything else with Bangalore lakes. So that is when we went on to see that there are hundreds of lakes in the peri-urban areas. We started talking to the communities there. We also started talking to the youths in that area. They were interested, but they said, we do not have resources. That is when we also approached some of the corporates, some of the industries, and also the government, because it all comes under the panchayat. It may be the village panchayat, but in the rural development department is there. We have the minor irrigation department. There's so many other departments which are interconnected. So they were also glad that we were taking up such initiatives in the peri-urban areas. And we then developed some proposals wherein the proposals are not just to, these are not huge proposals where people think that there'll be crores of rupees involved. I mean, you don't need crores of rupees. At least, yes, of course, anywhere between 50 to 75 lakhs. And this is well worth it because these lakes are almost about 50 to 70 acres. Some of them are 100 acres. And reviving and restoring such water bodies, this is what we have been doing over the last few years. Urban forestry is one main thing. Lake restoration is another important component. And of course, environmental awareness and education with under the Green School project that we have taken up. So about 10-12 schools have now been a part of this Green School project, where we first is to create awareness, sensitize them, and then give them hands-on experience as to what is rainwater harvesting, how is it done, and we involve them in setting up the same rainwater harvesting unit in their school. We also provide them with solar power, because many times we've seen that these schools have been donated with projectors and computers, but they do not have power supply.
Yeah.
That is where, So that's where we thought it would make sense to provide them with solar. At least they do not lose out on the subjects. They do not lose out on those classes that they should have been, taking. So how solar power can be an alternate power supply, how they can recharge groundwater with the help of rainwater harvesting, and also to segregate waste. There were forget having dustbins for plastic and paper and separately. There is no concept of dustbins at all. You cannot blame them, but then we thought, if you again started keeping the dustbins in different corners, they were again vandalized. So we thought we will build a solid structure which says plastic here, paper here, organic waste here, and metal and glass elsewhere. And now at least the campuses are clean and they know what happens if they mix different types of waste. So initially it is the awareness and then the hands-on experience to implement and execute these activities in their own school. And now it is gradually becoming, a kind of lifestyle. They have started practicing this even in their homes. May not be all of them, but this has started. We have seen the change, that they go back and they say, we need to have a separate bin. There is no water here. At least they have water in the school. They know how the water comes now, how it recharges the groundwater. So they say, let us not waste whatever it is. And they tell their colleagues, their sisters, brothers, or their parents also. So there has been, the impact. We have been seeing this impact, and this is what EcoWatch believes in, that we need to sensitize such communities. We need to involve them and make them participate in these activities. Only then will we.
Yeah. Thank you, Akshay. I'm going to come back to you before we wrap up again to ask about how road tractors, in-tractors, how Rotary could partner with the kind of projects that they're doing. I'm just going to come back. My friend Suresh Warrior, who's a trainer by himself, a corporate trainer, he has a question for Suresh Heblikar. He says, it looks like, he has an observation more than a question. Looks like the focus is much more on the environmental issues in tier 1 and possibly tier 2 cities. Focusing on undeveloped and underdeveloped regions could possibly be a good balancing act. He says, Suresh, do you agree with him? And do you have some words for it? Yeah.
Yes, I do agree with him, no doubt.
Yeah.
Because there are, as I said, we have to focus on the villages and the small towns. I meant that there are, for instance, agriculture, horticulture, animal husbandry. They bring a lot of income. They bring food. They bring other sources of life and sustain the life of the people. That's what I was saying when I said about the Western Ghats. The Western Ghats feed the streams, they feed the rivers, and the rivers in turn irrigate millions of acres of land. So a lot of youngsters who find it good to stay put in the villages and do wonderful agriculture, why will they be interested in coming to the city and waste life here? So these are the issues that we have to look at. The other socio-economic issues that we have. See, for instance, Kalgatgi, and I'm just giving you certain Todas in Nilgiris. Todas used to, build their homes by using the tall grass, right? Like the reeds that we have. But when I went and met them and discussed with them, there were only about 2 or 3 huts were there. They said we cannot build because we have to walk 40 to 50 kilometers to get the grass. By the time we bring the grass, it is already, bent and, it cannot be used because they have cut. Why there is no grass available? Because they said more housing colonies came, more roads came, more shopping centers came, and they wiped out all our areas where this grass was growing. That's what sustainability I'm talking about. So the Western Ghats, that's what I'm saying. The Western Ghats are very important because because I lived in Dharwad and I was going on this Goa road, I used to see a lot of small girls and boys coming on the road selling fruits and flowers and honey, which was naturally grown in the forest, called a minor forest produce. This minor forest produce was being sold. And like, for instance, there is a community called Bader community. These Baders, they contract the trees, the tamarind trees, the mango trees, the guava trees, which grow in plenty in our area. And then for years, they go on, tapping these fruits and then selling it to the houses, selling it to the shops, and they live there. And today we are cutting thousands and thousands of trees along the road, widening the road. I'm not saying don't widen wherever it is necessary. But in the Western Ghats today, they are widening by cutting more than 1 lakh of trees, which are the sources of study for the biodiversity students. Students who study botany, students who study zoology, and biology, they go to the forest to study biodiversity. Where should they go now? So these are certain things. I mean, what's his name? You said who asked the question?
Suresh Warrior, yeah. Suresh
Warrior,
Warrior, yeah.
He wanted to see where the focus will be. I mean, the sense the focus should be on something else other than the environment, or other than the cities and
other than tier 1 and tier 2. I mean, he's saying why should, I think we are too much focused on tier 1 and tier 2 city. What about the small villages?
No,
That's
I'm
what
not
he's
saying. I'm not focused on that. I'm saying
not you. In general, we.
Yeah.
In the sense,
So
the
what I'm
government
saying,
is focused.
for instance, when I wanted to talk to you about, see, the brilliant environmental report which was brought about by Stanford University. Stanford University brought out something around 8 or 9 years ago, and they brought out why there is a global deterioration of environment. The three reasons were given. One was the rise in population. Second was to meet the increased demands of the increased population. There were more economic activities and industrial enterprises. And third was the search for affluence. That is, to make easy money. Now through commission, through this and through that. So these three things, they said, were destroying the global environment, destroying the peace, concentration, and all that. So they quoted, if you want to address these issues, we have to look at some of the great three people. One was Schumacher, a German economist. Actually, he lived in Britain. He studied in Oxford. He brought out a beautiful book called The Small is Beautiful, in which he wrote the smaller projects. I mean, smaller projects, I mean, not huge projects. If you use smaller projects, they can be serviced, they can be handled, they can be managed by local skills, local people, maybe in the villages, maybe in the taluka places. They don't have to depend on, people who came from Mumbai, Bangalore to repair some of the technological, equipments that we use. So this will sustain using the local skills, using local knowledge, local technology. And then he said, build your communities along he build your economic projects along the communities, not corporations. See, because we are awed and enchanted by huge industries, huge corporations. We keep on talking about those who make trillions of dollars, and we are awed by them. Our youngsters are interested in getting jobs in such companies. I know, yes, because it happens to every young people, to all the young people in the developing countries. So we must look now what happens to environment if we build such huge technologies, huge companies. Why the West is now struggling to meet to understand the climate change processes. See, the climate change is going to bring a lot of destruction of the Atlantic Ocean. The conveyor belt, which flows in the ocean, is going to stop. If it stops, then there won't be rains. There won't be rains or ice sleets, and there won't be agriculture. There won't be food. You have to go on depending on those countries which only supply you food. So the fishing industry has collapsed, even in many of these European countries. So they are going to Africa. So Africa, there also a lot of people are standing in the queue to do fishing because they pay more money and they are doing fishing. They did it in the beginning. Today the fishing has collapsed there also. So these are the commercial things, the monoculture. Today more than half of the world is a monoculture. So when I say that the cities are dumping or the cities are getting deteriorated, they will also deteriorate small towns and the villages, because the life is so streamed. It is so streamlined. You keep on supplying vegetables, you keep on supplying milk, you keep on supplying all the requirements. Even from Dharwad, you get 10,000 rotis you get every day from the Jawar rotis, from Dharwad to Bangalore. So if Bangalore collapses in the sense, then that industry will also collapse. So what I'm saying is we have to build sustainable economic lifestyles.
Right. That brings me to the next question. Sindhya, Mr. Rotarian Sindhya is asking from Rotary Rajarajeshwari Nagara.
Right.
He's asking a simple question. Has government failed in developing a sustainable policy for sustainability? So he's asking, have they failed, in bringing out a sustainable policy for sustainability? have we failed, or is government doing something at all? Do we have any hopes? That's the question, both at center as well as at the state levels. That's the question Cynthia from Rajarajeshwari Nagar has.
No, unfortunately, looking at the present economic policies of the governments, both state and center, they are not much, interested in conservation of the environmental assets. And because we have gone to High Court against, this cutting of the trees, nearly more. They have already cut about thousands of trees between Belgaum and Goa, as I told you a little while back. So they have a lot of environmental agencies, organizations, individuals. They have all ganged up against certain, like the environment impact assessment. They don't want to, they want to dilute it. So these regulations, which were there, regulations are very important. So you see, when you do not make a proper environment impact analysis of a particular project, then you are not really looking at the marginalized section, the poor sections, which has happened in Delhi. They took large land, about 100, 200. They built certain things. They did not give them the power supply or the water supply and things like this. Because, it was not a high income group society. It was the marginalized people who were living there. And these are the things all over the country they are happening. We must make the government, understand these things. I hope the government also is the same, because the government are not different from us. The government are the same people, who are going and sitting there. But then the policies which they are pursuing are detrimental to environment. And this environment has to be understood. I'm saying because we have been there for the last more than 2-3 decades. We are trying to do so many schemes. We have been trying to implement a lot of these small little projects. So we understood in the process what are the issues, at the government, what are the issues at the local level. As Akshay was explaining to you about Panchayat Raj, about minor irrigation and all that. So we have to understand and sensitize these people. But the people should be able to listen also. You see, that's important. The government
I like the way you say it's government make policies, but people have to listen and
Yes.
support the government. Only then this is a
Correct.
good.
So
Sir,
we are ready.
I'm just going to take a small little break, and we have with us our beloved skyrocking district governor, the DGBL Nagendra Prasad. With us, and he knows you very well. So he's the son of famous film director CVL Shastri. So because you're in the film, and there has been various interaction that has happened, and I request our DG to say a few words in the middle. He was supposed to come in the start, but I think he got a little delayed. He has a few words. Right. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Krishna. Sir, namaskara, Suresh Heblikar.
Namaskara.
Fine. Good to meet you on this our Rotary platform. And
thank you.
Nice when Krishna told me about it. I was so happy about it.
Yeah.
So friends, good evening to all, and let me also recognize Akshay Heblikar, even though I have not met him. So thank you for your patronage for environment, I would say, because I know that has been fighting. Suresh Heblikar has been fighting for this, not now. Before anybody could think of environment, he was fighting from many years, not now. And I'm sure the way he has done, a lot of changes have happened now. I think people have understood how important is this environment. And telling about Rotary now, Rotary has recognized this as the 7th focus area. We have 6 focus areas already, like water, sanitation, maternity, economic, all these things. And along with this, this has been recognized as the 7th focus area. And we are giving a lot of weightage for tree planting, especially tree planting. We have been doing for many years, but now, especially from past few years, we have been giving a lot of importance to that. And especially from this year onwards, our targets are very well fixed up. We are not only doing regular tree planting, we are also focusing for the fruit bearing, and also like one called Kalparuksha, wherein we are going to plant coconut trees wherever possible, mainly for the farmers, to give them the economical stability for farmers. So a lot of things has been done, and Rotary this year, our district sir, runs from Srirangpatna up to Kalahasti, 8 revenue districts, 7 from Karnataka and 1 from Andhra. And we are focusing on agriculture too, because we felt agriculture is one of the key important thing, and not only on the environment, and even on the agriculture and rural women. That is also one of the things. Just now after this, I have a meeting on the rural women empowerment, wherein we are right now we are giving them the cows under the scheme called Kamadenu, wherein they will get a cow which is about 50,000 rupees, and we have 20,000 is given by the KMF, and we bring in about 30,000, 25,000 from the donor and 5,000 from Rotary, and the milk will directly go to the Federation, KMF, and the amount is paid to them. And this is one of the important projects for the rural women, which is going to give them economically stability. And we are focusing more, and I think this year, sir, our Prakash Pelwadi, artist whom you know,
Right, yeah.
for the environment this year. And I also see Prakash Nagesh is here. He has also taken a lot of pain for environment. And Prakash had brought Sumalata Amrish, and she MP, and she agreed to be one of the brand ambassador for Rotary for 1 year for the environment actually. So everybody are more focused on environment, and everybody wants to do something good for the environment. I think under your guidance, especially when youth is there, this is the age, and this is where each one of us have to focus on environment, which is an important subject. And I think your coming today has made a lot of change, especially in the Rotary, and more and more your ideas and your we need your advice how to go about and what we are doing. Maybe some corrections are required so that it can go on a greater scale and bigger scale to help this humanity. So thank you once again, sir, on behalf of District 3190 for accepting our invitation. And over to you, Krishna. I'll be here.
Sir, thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Sir, Suresh, sir, that brings to me the next question. Someone is asking me, how can Rotary, Rotaractors, how we can, involve ourselves as youth, particularly with a lot of youth energies there, and big force, how we can support the movement in terms of sustaining the situations around, particularly in protecting the environment, conserving the environment, and building a sustainable society. I wouldn't call it a sustainable city. I would call it sustainable society. How we can do it if it's not just infrastructure. There's a lot of other things. So that's the question for both you, and maybe Akshay could also add a little bit at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing, Krishna, that I owe something. I owe a lot to Rotary, because in 1991, I was given a big prize by the Rotary International. The Rotary International president from New York had come. Mr. Pandurang Shetty was the main person here. He handed over this, that fellow.
Paul Harris
Fellow Award, and they recognized me for making my contribution to environment. So I owe a lot to them. Madhura Chhatrapati, we studied together, marketing and advertising, and she was instrumental.
They're all there. I think they're all still around. Yes, they've grown a little older, but
I owe quite a lot. Yes, I owe quite a lot to Rotary. And as you asked me the question, we certainly are more keen to involve the youngsters, and they can definitely come in our projects, because a lot of people have come before, even people from Deutsche Bank, people from the colleges. Youngsters from the colleges, universities, they have participated in planting the trees. They have participated in cleaning the lakes that we have done earlier, Kaswanhalli Lake, and so on. So we can definitely involve them. We can sensitize them. They can also contribute quite a lot, because, as I said, today the youth are more sensitive towards environmental issues, and they are more interested in participating and trying to do something for the environment. We are always there, and you know me very well, so you can always get in touch with whoever wants to do something, whoever wants to come. They can always be in touch with us. Akshay is doing, these lakes and all that. We planted quite a bit of saplings recently around the lakes, that he is developing there. The schools, which are very important, the students, these people can come and address the school, especially the government schools, because the government schools play a very vital role. They are more sincere, they are more committed, they can be made to understand. I mean, we can make them understand about environment's importance. So these people can come and give a talk to them. And because we have taken the Intel organization, the Intel came and they addressed thousands of students in the small villages, the schools. So these are the things which we are open, and they are most welcome, and we can definitely make them get interested in these projects and continue to do what they have been interested in doing.
Thank you, Akshay. You want to add a few things to that, Akshay? See, I know you do urban forestry, green schools, lake protection. Come on, you're doing plenty of things. I know you for at least 15, 20 years, and you've been doing this since you were so young. I just want to understand how the Rotractors can volunteer into the whole thing. What are the projects? Do they have internships with you? How can they support this whole thing in terms of making the environment conservation and sustainability?
Well, first of all, see, I mean, they can definitely get involved in our projects. For example, the lake restoration. They can get involved in helping us clean up these lakes, the surroundings of the lakes. There are quite a bit of the schools. There are a lot of these communities, the local communities who are residing in and around these lakes. We also want a lot of people to come and help us educate them, talk to them, and even tell them about what exactly and why are we doing this, restoring these lakes. What is happening to Bangalore, which should not happen to these areas. So we can, in fact, it is like train the trainers. We can help in training some of these youngsters who can have a set time, or who can commit themselves for either for weekends or if they have weekdays. There is our team which is already working in these areas, so they can always coordinate with them. They can help us in documenting a few things. Some of them are interested in photography and videography, so they can help us in documenting some of our activities on a regular basis, maybe once a month, twice a month, or once in a quarter. So we can work those things out. What I'm saying is, where all can we involve them is right from even starting to make some of these environmental awareness presentations. If it is for a school, what kind of presentations do we make? If it is for a college, what kind of college, whether is it in a rural area or an urban area, they should be aware of who they are addressing. So we can tell them about these the target communities. They can help us in preparing the presentation material. They can go to these schools, they can go to colleges, talk to them about what we are planning to do and how they can be involved, document whatever that they have been doing. This holds good for lake restoration. It holds good for urban forestry. It also holds good for our waste management, solid waste management and segregation programs. We take up a lot of cleanup drives. They can even come up with some of their own thoughts and views and ideas. It is not that they only have to listen to what we are saying or what we have been doing. If they have some other new, creative, innovative way of approaching some of these issues, if they have some good, better ideas, they can even suggest to us, so that we can work, we can even design some of these programs around the ideas that they have been able to generate. So they can get involved right from the beginning, throughout the project duration. In the end also, if they can help us in preparing some of these reports, because it is not just sitting somewhere and preparing these reports. I'm saying it helps us a lot. This is where we also need, some of them are good in presentation, some of them are good in talking to people, some of them are good in documenting it. So depending on what their skill sets are, we will be able to take their, take their expertise and see where it will fit in. We can have a different team which will be working with us. We can have suppose it is from Rotary, any one of the districts or any one of the Rotary clubs.
Right. Yeah.
The nearest, like for example, we are working near Bangalore and Devanhalli regions. So whoever is in and around these areas can contact us. We can form a team which will work with our team, and they can coordinate. Maybe every weekend or at least once in a fortnight, we can tell them that these are the activities that we are doing. They can help us in planting, maintaining them, documenting them, because that has become a very important thing. For example, we have geotagging. We can train them and they can help us in documenting them and even maintaining them. They can sit in their own homes and help us in documenting. And yeah, geotagging is available.
Geotagging, interesting.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about it some other time. But thanks to you,
Sure,
Akshay,
sure.
for. I'm going to wrap it up with last question, probably last 1 or 2 questions to Suresh. But thank you, Akshay, for really putting in. And we're going to do. We have District Road Track Representative Rajvamshi here. I hope you're making note of these, the opportunities, how road tractors and interactors can get involved. We have Chetan also with us, and Rajvamshi, you are there. And of course, District Secretary Arun Tej and a few others are there. They're all working at the district level for the road track. And I request all of them to hear to this. There are plenty of opportunities. I request Rajvamshi to take note of it. Did you have any question or you want to say something?
No, sir. Keeping this in mind, we have also created a Hasiru committee for the first time ever for road tractors. We would like to get in touch with you and look for collaborative opportunities very soon, sir. Thank you.
Right. Great. Thank you, Rajvamshi. Sure. So one of the last questions, I mean, somebody is saying, if we reduce the waste in city, we are sustained. Do you agree with that, Suresh? I mean, just because, sure. Yeah, so if you reduce waste, I mean, do you have some words
recycle, reuse. These are 3 R's are normally used in environmental language. Reduce, reuse, recycle. So if we reduce, there will be a lot of, less burden for those who pick up the waste or those who dispose of the waste, those who manage the waste. So this is the best way, because there is, if there are environmental issues today, it is because our wants have multiplied. If we stick to our needs, which are limited, there won't be more of the waste. So there is a line between wants and needs, which we have to understand. Do you really want it or do you need it? If you need it, have it. But if you don't want it, don't try to have it. Because the wants bring a lot of waste. Wants bring a lot of environmental, issues. Because you want car, you want so many things. All right, you see, not only affording, you can afford, but you see, affording not. That is why we have to understand, the man who has the most is not happy. The man who has the least is a happy person. That fellow who, these are the issues which we should understand. The line between wants and needs, and we must understand that there is a library, the library of life, which should not be burned, because that is biodiversity. We have to understand from each community their needs, their requirements. They are very, very limited. If we go to some of the villages, along the Western Ghat or any villages, their needs are limited. It's only now which are nearer to the big cities like Bangalore, the needs become the wants, and wants multiply, and then the huge shopping centers come. They use huge electricity and elevators, and then most of the packaging of many goods that we buy, and that becomes a huge pile-up of the waste, which is difficult to manage. Because we have to understand, that's why I said we have a traditional mindset in this country yet. We have only the using cars, we are using telephones, we are using infrastructure, but in the heart of hearts, we are traditional people. So we have to make this understand, we have to join, in the sense we have to combine our life, our needs, our requirements, and then how these things will really save our environment. So this is, we have to take a look at the soil, we have to take a look at the tree. A carpenter looks at the tree, and he thinks, yes, we can make lot of good furniture out of it, he wants to cut. An artist looks at the tree, he paints it beautifully. An environmentalist who looks at the tree, he wants to maintain it. So there are different perspectives, different views. So we have to understand and give a kind of a view which is sustainable. When I was talking to a villager long back, they had cut a lot of trees. I said, why do you want to cut? He says that I need money and the government is not giving me, I'm not getting money. If I cut the tree and give it, I get about a couple of thousands. So that's enough for me to live for about 2, 3, 4 months. He did not understand what will happen later. If the tree goes, what happens? So we have to understand, the people are talking about Maikaweki forest. Do we really need Maikaweki forest? It's an ecological disaster because Maikaweki trees, they go deep into the soil. Whereas our trees in the tropical and subtropical country like India, we need trees which spread the roots in the soil. That kind of a tree is required here, and that will sustain for a long time. So these are the issues. Just because somebody is saying, okay, there's a forest, Maikaweki forest, or this forest, that forest, we cannot. We have to understand the soil, the nutrients of the soil, the humidity, why certain trees come up in certain areas. So when we were doing this urban forestry in the army land, we looked at about 150 species, both in Bangalore, Kolar and Tumkur areas, because Bangalore is a transitional zone. It's a dry zone which towards the east and south. So we had to understand what it was. So we identified more than 120, 130 species and planted only those kinds of trees. Because they will come looking at the nutrients of the soil, the humidity, the moisture in the soil. These are very important. They have to be sustained for a long time. So we have to teach this, sensitize this to the lot of students, the youngsters who are coming today. Look at the soil. Soil need to be maintained. We cannot have Bangalore like this without a soil. Most of our parks need to be tree parks because the park which have got flowers and lawns, they need more water. We need more water today to drink, to cook food. About 40 to 50% of the population of Bangalore is not getting the water from Kaveri. They are digging water from the ground. So underground water is being rampantly used. It should be used like a fixed deposit. A groundwater needs to be used like a fixed deposit. Only when there is an emergency you have to take that water. We are rampantly, relentlessly, mindlessly exploiting the groundwater every day. What will happen to this earth? If you go to Africa, you will see that even the great ecologists have blundered. Many of them said that we went on, killing a lot of elephants. We today realize we shouldn't have done it because we thought that they are going to destroy all the vegetation, grasslands and all that. They went on killing. No, they need to graze. Thousands of animals come every day, they graze, they go, and the stubs remain. When the rainfall comes, they all come up again. So this is the thing which took 4 decades for ecologists and biologists to understand. So environment is a very complex issue. It is not, we are just simplifying it for people to understand, but it's a very, very complex issue. So it takes hundreds and thousands of years to understand the mysteries of these beautiful, complex, wonderful environmental nature that we have, how the oceans were created. See, the Stanford University brings out a report on environmental degradation. At the same time, it's doing research on the jellyfish in the deep seas of America, in the deep sea. They are trying to understand what at the deeper levels of the oceans, what is there. It is not still understood. So they are studying the jellyfish and trying to understand how it moves. They are making it run faster. So there is a lot to understand from nature. There is a lot to understand because there are forests in the water, in the seas. We need to understand that. Their functions.
There's a lot. Yes, I agree. Thank you so much. Finally, I just want to ask you, Suresh, can you tell us a little about, looking at your movies, finally, I just want to look at, ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಚಿತ್ರಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬಹಳ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ. You're looking at ಕಾಡಿನ ಬೆಂಕಿ, ತಾಯಿ ಸಾಹೇಬ, ಪ್ರಥಮ ಉಷಾ ಕಿರಣ, ಆಘಾತ, ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದಲೋ ಬಂದವರು. I'm sure there are so many other movies like,
like Aparichita, Agantuka, Alemane, Madura Prema.
All these movies are so romantic. I mean, you've grown. I mean, if it was not romance about in the movies, I mean, how do you define this? What is your romance level?
Romance is a mental faculty. Being romantic is a mental faculty. I am grown with that. It has come through me, in my it is there in my genes to be romantic, to be imaginative. Right. Romance doesn't just mean holding a girl and, not that. I mean, many people by that, they understand romance means, falling in love and all. Romance is being very imaginative. Romance is being very, very, your faculty, which goes very high. That's why I love environment, because it is so big, wonderful, the ocean, the rivers, the mountains, the gorges, and the way the rivers flow. It is amazing. So I love nature. That's why, I was able to make the kind of movies. I'm not saying that as a great environmentalist, whatever little I understood or little I tried to do. For instance, I was involved right from the 30 years, right from the Western Ghats. So my movies also took that shape. I did a lot of movies where there were mountains and rivers like Joe Falls in Kardinabenki. In Agantuka, which I did, there were beautiful rivers and oceans I used. I made a story out of a friend of mine who was a doctor who wanted to go to England, but he said he loved his village and lived there.
Yes, I remember this, yes.
So I said, okay, let me make a movie. It became a beautiful romantic movie. And a lot of environmental, projections or interventions were there, which I tried to use. So, movies are that way because movies have to be understood because movie is a beautiful language. How to use silence, how to use projection of your thoughts, your dialogues and all that. And what is handsomeness? The way you talk, the way you bring out a particular suggestion, you bring out a particular situation, the way you create, that's being very handsome about it.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you so much for being with us. And on behalf of Rotary Youth Service and Engagement, I thank you very much for being with us. Akshay, thanks to you too.
Thanks, Krishna.
It's my pleasure to have you both here today. And we're going to reconnect. I think Rajvamshi will connect with the Rotractors, and there are some collaborative projects. Rotary clubs will also join in, but I'm sure about it. Thank you so much for your time, Suresh. It was a wonderful, as always. And I would do this normally face to face at your home.
Nice, talking to you, really.
Thanks.
I mean, you made it look much better and easier for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Krishna. Thank you
sir.
very
the
much.
Whole recording, we'll put it up somewhere so that more people can watch this. Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks to Rotary as
Good
well.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks to Rotary.
Yeah.
Thanks to Rotary and all those people, who gave me the award.
Yes.
Okay, please do communicate.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good night. Thank you, everybody, for being there tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks and good night.
Thank you. Good night.